Quick chatting it up.
Quick chat. Rip a pod. Let's do it. Welcome back, guys. Thanks for tuning in again.
I love doing podcasts.
Yeah. Podcasts are the highlight
Yeah, it's
of
definitely
all of our recording experience.
Yeah, exactly. Better than the other two for sure. Just more enjoyable. I get to let loose. There's no structure. It's easy.
We're in Yosemite. We're just outside of Yosemite, technically, for this one. Continuing our America tour.
No grand view this time. But
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys are
Sorry.
kind of probably a little happy about that because we're not just staring at like a magnificent view.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh yeah, the boys are roughing it a little bit.
Yeah. Believe it or not everything is a banger view. Sometimes we do just suck it up and stay in the woods.
Ironically, Yosemite kind of has the best views almost that we've seen.
The granite mountains, the granite cliffs, we were totally sleeping on that.
I was excited to see Yosemite because of its reputation and how it's basically as popular as Yellowstone. Like, everybody loves to say Yosemite, Yosemite, Yosemite. It's like, okay, great. But Yellowstone, absolute fraud on its popularity. Yosemite, rather, has actually followed through. It's been, it's kind of blown me away, to be honest.
Yosemite's
It's an awesome place.
Yosemite's got some great stuff. It's crazy. We were driving through to our hike yesterday, and we kept kind of going around these bends, and it would just be wide expanses of just trees, and they're like mountains that are nothing like I've ever seen before, because they're not like your typical dirt, foliage. It's so different from everything else. It's just white rock and then trees.
It kind of feels to me like Earth is exposed, kind of. It's like, goddamn, cover up. Your granite is showing. It's just...
Get decent. Come on.
There's just massive fucking slabs of rock, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a cool spot.
It's pretty solid. You guys will hear our full review in the move for Yosemite. But definitely enjoyed it. We'll be heading out of here tomorrow. We'll be heading down to Southern California.
Yeah, we get to go stay inside in San Mateo.
Yep.
The birthplace of my father, Thomas
Brady.
Edward Patrick Brady.
Is that his full name?
Yeah.
Thomas Edward Patrick Brady?
Yep.
Let's
That's all of them.
Way to rep for the Eds.
Yeah. So that'll be cool.
That's going to be a good one.
Some PCH driving.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. We're going to stop by, what's that? Where are we going? What's the next park?
Joshua Tree.
Joshua Tree, yes, which we've heard a lot about, but we can't seem to really figure out what's going on down there. So we're going to experience it firsthand.
Yeah, Joshua Tree, is literally just trees, right?
You tell me. I have no idea.
Redwood was also just trees, too. And that blew me away. So
yeah, the redwoods were fucking awesome.
I'm not going to knock any tree at this point. I'm a big tree guy all of a sudden.
Yeah. Big tree guy.
After Jade Tree, we're going to Arizona. We're going to be in Arizona for probably 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm. We've only got I was looking at it today, we've got 4.5 weeks left on the trip, and then we will end it. We're going to cap the trip off with a few days of skiing in Colorado, which I'm not even factoring into the trip, because that's going to be more of just a vacation. Yeah.
That's going to be a kind of reward for sucking it up and being out here in the woods for 3 months. It's been a very good experience.
Definitely.
I've definitely grown a lot. I feel like I've discovered a lot about myself, which is what I wanted to kind of achieve coming out here, was kind of that self-discovery and just focusing on me and what I want to get out of life and what motivates me, just focusing on my wants. I feel like you can get tripped up in life doing a lot of things based off of what other people are doing, what it seems like you should be doing, And this trip provided me the opportunity to really just block out all those distractions and focus on me. And yeah, I've never been more at peace with myself and like been more comfortable with who I am. So it's been an absolutely fantastic experience in that sense.
I totally agree. I mean, I feel like I've had such an interesting experience out here. It's gone through so many different phases at this point. Like we had the first couple of weeks where we were really roughing it and we were like, how the hell are we going to make it through this whole thing? To the point where we actually like accepted it and got stuck in and started making the most of it. And then had our friends come out. We spent a week inside, and then we got back out here. Now it's a new chapter, and every week it seems like it's something new to learn.
Yeah, there's been two at least distinct chapters, and I think when we went inside for like a week at your grandparents' house was a very clear defining line in the trip. Up to that point was a lot of learning how to do this, a lot of growing, a lot of getting used to being outside and kind of finding out what we wanted to be posting, what our podcast was going to be like, all these segments, like all that stuff grew and changed a lot before we came inside. And then since we've come back out and we hit the redwoods, now we're in Yosemite, overall I just feel a lot more comfortable with where I'm going with all this stuff, and I feel like I can see the vision a lot clearer, and seeing it more clearly has allowed me to really start taking action on it and kind of throw myself into it. So yeah, that's kind of the two for me.
Yeah, I mean, major growth there, and I totally agree. I mean, just going from kind of like scrambling around trying to grab hold of anything to a sense of direction and like a goal in mind, just a clearer sense of where you want to end up, makes everything so much easier, so much smoother. And it's just a matter of getting there rather than figuring out what there is, which is comforting, massive.
Yeah. Along the same lines as that, the way that I think of it is kind of just like I've started to enjoy just every action. Like it doesn't even really matter to me how this is received or how successful it is. It's kind of just I've grown to really like what I'm putting out and grown to really like who I am and everything about me, kind of. All my baggage, all my flaws, all my quirks, like all that stuff I've just kind of owned now versus trying to cover them up or like make myself to be the person who I think is going to be popular online or be well received. And it's just now I'm just all in on the process of me, basically.
So what do you think was the key moment? I know you said that when we went inside that switched it up, but for everyone back home that can't really go on a 3-month sabbatical basically to just fuck off entirely and remove everything from their lives, what is something that they can work on, do you think, to maybe come to the same sort of sensation?
Well, I'm going to answer that question, but also not really answer that question. So what did it for me was literally being alone out here and having all the distractions removed. I had to find happiness and satisfaction in that environment, in this environment, where it's just me and you out here, no phones usually, no sort of validation from anything. So I had to just go in on finding the things about me that I liked and kind of, like I was just saying, owning them. Like, it's one thing to know that they're there, because I feel like a lot of people are almost overly aware of their flaws and stuff that they are self-conscious about. But once you realize, I guess, that everybody has them, you can start owning your own and realizing that it's not that big of a deal that you have them. Everybody's got their own that they're worried about. No one's worried about yours. And that's what makes you unique. If everybody was the same perfect, stereotypical human that's just cool and like easygoing and makes sense all the time, the world would be a very boring place. There would be no art. There would be no culture, nothing.
Yeah.
It would just be fucking gray all over the place.
Yeah. You need the flaws.
Yeah.
And that's a really good point. I like how you answered that, because I feel like that's, like you said, the piece that most people are missing. Everybody understands that they have kinks and they have flaws and that they're not perfect and etc. But just the awareness of that isn't really enough. It's the acceptance, which is the next step, and that's actually pretty difficult. Like, I would even say that I'm still working on that myself.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm like perfectly self-actualized and I'm totally set now. It's just I've begun to accept that, and I've gotten a taste of feeling actually comfortable in my own skin, which has been kind of like a lifelong battle for me, almost, I would say. And coming out here and owning these flaws, like I was just saying, has given me the first sense of like, I don't give a shit. Like, I'm just me. And that's what I wanted this podcast to be, what I wanted my Instagram to be. I just wanted to be me, but I didn't even really know what that was or what that was going to be or how I was going to do that. And then now I kind of know what to do and how to be that.
Yeah, part of, like, we've had this discussion a little bit, but I think that understanding and accepting your flaws and truly accepting them into your character as something that can be worked on, but really just understanding that that's where you are right now, is defining yourself, like creating a boundary around yourself, which you understand. And when you're operating out in the world, if you don't have any sort of boundaries or any sort of sharp edges to you, then you don't know how to handle yourself, and then other people don't know how to handle you either. And you just become this formless blob that goes in and out, around and in between everyone else that does have edges, and that is a tough life. You need to define yourself, and part of defining yourself is an acknowledgement and acceptance of the flaws and the shortcomings. If
you don't know what you are or who you are, I don't know how you could ever really have a true sense of direction. That's another thing that we've talked about a lot on this podcast, is setting goals and working to achieve them, and that being kind of like the whole point of life almost. And I think in order to truly set good goals that align with you, you have to know what you are and what you want and who you are. So that's one of the ways that, like in our last podcast, we were talking about self-help and how that can be kind of wishy-washy. That's one of the benefits of doing that stuff and doing the inner work, is you get to find out who you are, and then you can set a solid foundation to build off of from there. Yeah, and just to play off of the self-help, like self-improvement, like how a lot of people get stuck in the beginning phase of that, and they don't end up actually improving or creating something out of themselves through the self-help, all that whole experience, is if you don't understand who you are and you don't have a definition for yourself, basically through the identification and the acceptance of all these things, how can you even improve? Like, you can understand that you have flaws, but if you don't actually accept that, okay, like, I've got poor discipline. Okay, you can understand, oh, I've got poor discipline, blah, 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 blah. But if you don't accept that as a fact and face the reality of what that means for you, you can never actually move towards having discipline or becoming strong or becoming wise or XYZ, developing a skill. You can't do any of these things unless you actually
take the time to sit there and understand what exactly you're dealing with in yourself.
Yeah, I kind of zoned out.
That's all right. You basically in summer you need a solid base to move from.
Yes.
And most people don't have that.
You got to accept your baseline so that you can grow. Yeah, totally. And part of that acceptance of your problems, like for us or for anyone who wants to create anything, I was thinking about this yesterday when we were at that cool spot. In order to create, in order to be an artist, basically you have to be willing to be vulnerable, because art is showing other people life through your own eyes, how you see life. So you have to be open and vulnerable enough to let people into that. And you can't be vulnerable if you're not comfortable with yourself, because you're constantly trying to portray yourself as a certain way for other people, versus when you fully accept yourself and you accept all that is you, you can open yourself up and show the world you, truly. And when you're showing the world, when you're capable of showing your true self, you're capable of producing art. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I'm following. It's like, because all art is just an expression of something that's being felt inside.
Yeah. You're trying to say something.
Yeah. And if you don't have the confidence to say anything, like, you can't create art. Like, you could imitate someone else's art and, like, try to pass that off as your own, but that's not actually art. That's not a pure form of expression.
I feel like real good art is almost like your deepest, darkest secrets almost. Like, your most raw emotions on a subject creates the best art. Like, I have a totally new appreciation for going to an art museum now after our hike yesterday, because I realized that and, like, truly almost experienced what that means to be an artist. And, like, going and looking at a painting at the Museum of Fine Arts, every painting is the artist trying to portray something. So, like, you can go and look at a painting and just be like, that takes talent, that looks visually appealing. Or you can go look at a painting and be like, okay, what was he trying to say with this? Like, what does all this really mean? Like, how does this relate to life, kind of a thing? So, and it's ironic because my entire life up to this point, I was not creative, not an artist. I didn't have a bone for that in my body. And really what it was just me, like, suppressing that side of me, because I felt like I should be the athletic jock sports guy who, like, fuck art, that's for women, that's gay, basically.
Ooh.
I'm gonna get canceled. But that's what I was thinking. Like, I'm not trying to say anything with that. That's just how I thought. And I'm saying basically that is the wrong way to think. That when you're truly complete, you're able to look at all these things and be like, and have an appreciation for it and fully develop that side of you. So, yeah.
Yeah, I find that to be pretty interesting. Like, how, like, a lack of understanding or perspective on art, because I feel like I've had a similar kind of life structure or perspective when it comes to art as you just described, where I was always like, that's just not for me. That's like the soft boy shit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not really into that. Like, I'm tougher than that. I'm more of a man than that. But really, it's just it's an understanding of what it actually is. Like, it's they're trying to convey a message in the same way that an author writes a book and they try to convey a certain image.
Exactly. There's all different forms of art too. Like, podcasting is art. Writing a book, like you just said, is art. What we're posting on Instagram is art. Anything that you are creating is art. It doesn't have to be painting or drawing. Like, yeah, any form of expression is art.
Yeah.
And
and if you're not open to, like, if you're not open to the message, or you don't even I'm trying to find a way to properly express this thought, but if you're not open to hearing the message, then that means that there's got to be some part of you that's closed off for some reason, and you're, like you said, you're stifling a certain part of your soul essentially for one reason or another, which is interesting.
It is
that you would stifle yourself, but we all do.
Yeah, and especially stifle it in the name of being a man, when in actuality, like, the strongest version of you is able to acknowledge that and express it. And I guess that's probably like what the feminists actually truly are trying to get across when they say toxic masculinity, but they can't get their own suppressions and traumas out of the way.
Yeah,
to
they got
actually
their own
make
bullshit that's going on.
To make a true, real point. But if they could do that, I think that what they would be saying is that you need to be able to access the whole range of your being. The soft side, the manly side, all of it.
Interesting. That's a very interesting dissection of the feminist piece, which I don't even like. I think you're right. At some point, that was the message, and it's gotten lost in all of the buzzwords and all of the like. There's a whole man-hating sect out there that really just it gets lost in there.
Yeah, what happened was true feminism was going on, and then the blue hair women realized that there was a group of people out here that were saying something negative about men, and then they took their personal experiences of men not showing them any attention because they're fat and ugly, and they latched onto that and were like, oh great, fuck men, we're all on this together. Now it's just completely off the absolute other end of the spectrum, where it's pretty much too far gone, and any real constructive message is kind of gone. But I understand what you guys are trying to do, and there is at the root of it a good point to be made, that yes, these macho men probably have some sort of trauma going on, but that is you're not going about it the right way.
Yeah, there's a better way to say whatever you're saying.
Yeah.
That isn't going to inflame all of the men that you're trying to say it to.
Exactly. You should never be, if you're trying to get a point across, you can't immediately like say something bad about the people that you're trying to convince.
Yeah.
Like, did you never, like, are you not, what in you is not functioning correctly?
Yeah.
I am not a marketing major. I'm not a sales guy. Nothing. Even I know, in order to get someone to do something that you want, you have to appeal to them. You can't be like, you're a shithole, like, change your ways. It's like, no, you just called me an asshole. I'm not going to change anything for you.
Yeah. And I think this point actually, I mean, it can be extrapolated onto all movements. Like, every movement at the base has some sort of point that has validity, otherwise it wouldn't have developed into a movement. But at some point they all become hijacked by all of the freeloaders, it's either freeloaders or the people with malintent who want to steer it one way or the other for their own personal gain. But that's essentially what a freeloader is too, just without any sort of control.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I agree that it does apply to all movements, where most things get blown out of proportion, and the people that feel victimized the most, maybe, they let their emotion get in the way. And emotion's a tricky thing.
Yeah.
Emotion can rule you. And this is not to say emotion is not important.
Yeah.
You have to feel your emotions, but this is another thing I was thinking of about women. They always love to say that they love a man who's in touch with their emotions. I feel like no one really understands what that means. I didn't know what that means, but I think what it means, and again, I don't understand women, so this could be wrong, But
Okay. I'm all ears.
I think it means if you understand the root cause of your emotions. So, and that is valuable in this overarching question of like letting your emotions influence you. You need to be aware of them, and you need to be aware of where they're coming from. That's really the key, is what makes you feel this way? Why are you feeling this way? And is it valid, or is it something that I can do something about, or is it completely out of my control and I need to drop this right now?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good stuff there. I think that the emotion, like, you need to understand that emotions aren't meant to not be felt. Like, if you're feeling a certain way, it's because of something. It's not to be shoved down. If you're angry for some reason. If you're sad for some reason. If you're XYZ, you're XYZ. But you can't then, like, say you feel angry for some reason. Like, you feel like somebody was rude to you unfairly, and so that angered you. You can't then take that and react with anger. You have to dissect it logically, and you have to react with logic. You feel the emotion and you break it down with logic, and then you find your conclusion.
Yeah.
And that's how the two pieces are both, they work together, which is how everything works. There's two opposites, and then they work together in unison. But you have you need to be in touch with your emotions, but you're not supposed to be ruled by your emotions. You're supposed to feel them and understand them. And then there's we need to follow logic. And it's like, yes, we need to follow logic, but you can't follow it all the way. You can't rule emotion out of your life, because then you're cold and you have no heart. And so where's the mid ground there? And what's the cooperation between the two? And that's an interesting thing to try and get to the bottom of.
They play into each other. Emotion adds flavor to your life or to your logic, and logic adds reason to your emotion.
Boom.
That was a bar.
That was a fucking bar. You practiced that one?
No, straight off the dome. That was a freestyle. But it reminds me of something I saw earlier today on Mike's story when we were accessing the internet for our 30 minutes a day.
Okay.
It was saying that the real you comes out not in your initial reaction to a problem or a situation. Like you were saying, someone gets angry at you unfairly, not to respond with anger. That initial response of anger is not the real you. The real you is able to look past that, and it comes in your response ability. So not your responsibility, obviously, but if you break it down to your ability to respond,
yeah,
that is your true measure of character.
That's very interesting. That's a great breakdown of the word.
Responsibility?
Yeah. Responsibility. How able are you to respond properly? Or, like, what's your response look like?
Mm-hmm. You need to be able to formulate a appropriate response for situations, and your ability to do that, determines the maturity, I guess, or what would you say? How?
Probably maturity, because I'm not one to think that people, like, say you have a poor response ability. I'm not one to think that that is where you're going to be forever. So I would say maturity is probably the right way, because I think that at the end of your growth is maturity, essentially.
Yeah. And okay, I just thought of this while you were saying this. Let me see if I can get this out. So in order to inform a good response ability, you need to create space somewhere in you between like receiving this stuff and then your response, right? So there needs to be like a buffer where you kind of view what happened to you in a non, like, it doesn't really impact you for a second. You just kind of view it
It's not
impartially.
personal.
Yeah, you don't take it personally. One of the 4 agreements. You need to create that space, and I think that space can be created when you realize that you're not your thoughts. So your initial response is thought, right? And then when you realize that you're not your thoughts and you're the observer of your thoughts, that's the space that you need, because you can act then from the observer, observing your thought of, I need to respond this way.
Fascinating. I think you hit it right on the head.
I'm exhausted.
Yeah, that was a lot of mental work to get there.
Especially to articulate that. Oh
yeah.
my God.
Jeez. No, I've just piecing it together. I was glad that you were thinking it, not me. I've still got a little bit of gas in my tank, but no, that's totally facts. I mean, to have that mental space between the action and your reaction is how you can control the outcome, control your life. That's the moment where you control your life. And
facts.
That's what the Stoics always preach about. Because being one thing that when I was initially reading all about the Stoics and all that was that it's not that they don't feel emotion, it's just that they're in control of it. And that is the space in life where you actually control your life, is in that split second. That's not necessarily actually a split second, whatever it is, but that moment in space-time where you've experienced something and then you then can formulate a response to it, that little gap right there, that's the only piece of your entire life that you have control over.
I loved the way that you put that is how you control your life. That's perfect.
Thanks.
And yeah, I'm reading the Marcus Aurelius book right now, so I'm a little bit fueled up on that Stoic stuff.
Yeah.
That dude is a genius.
Really?
It's absolutely insane. The only way that, he just gets so deep on everyday, concepts and interactions. That, obviously, he didn't have any technology. He was writing this in, 150 AD.
Crazy.
His great-grandfather knew Jesus, basically.
They were like this.
Yeah. And, so he just had all this time to contemplate life. And you can tell that dude is, he breaks down everything, just how you should be living your life and what, the makings of a pure life are. And he talks about all the same things that you hear spirituality people talk about now, the 7 spiritual laws or the 4 agreements or anything like that. He hits the same notes, but in a much more realistic, practical, life applicable way 2,000 years ago. It's incredible to me.
It's amazing. It's amazing too that truths withstand time.
That's the real lesson there.
Yeah, that things that he found to be true and effective way back then are still true and effective regardless of the technology and regardless of the political atmosphere and XYZ. Truth is true regardless of who's saying it or when it's being said, which is
facts.
Nuts.
I'm glad that you found something valuable in what I was saying, because I had no goddamn point. And exactly what you said, how truth that can stand that test of time is real truth. That was a good point. That's it gives me confidence that when you read stuff like that, it's actually real and you should be applying it to your life and not just some mumbo jumbo, really, because it was true 2,000 years ago, like you were saying, and it's still true to this day.
Yeah, those are the things that you should gravitate towards in life. The things that were true back then and are true now. And once you get a sense for that stuff, they start to feel differently. I personally am a big believer in truth hits differently than lies, essentially. Real is different than fake, and you can feel it in your soul, but you have to be somewhat in tune with your soul to even have a sense of that.
Yeah.
But if you read these things and you find that they've been true back then and they've been true now, like we've been talking about in these last few minutes. That's the kind of shit, like that's the life glue. That's the shit that makes life work. That's the stuff that's here after everything goes to shit and before it all gets to glory.
It's like the rules of life,
Yes.
the programming of life, where these things will hold true always. It's just amazing to me that the human experience, like everybody who goes through it, is experiencing the same things, basically.
Yeah.
The same problems, the same conundrums, the same like personal or interpersonal conflict. Just all of it pulls the same strings in everybody, regardless of your personality, where you're from, when you were born, what country you live in, all of those. Like, the human experience is the human experience regardless.
Right. And that's the point of every single person's life. That's why you're here, the listener, is to experience those same problems that everybody else experiences, but from a very specific lens, a very personal lens. If you didn't have your own personal set of experiences that were different from mine, then there, you know, why would any of this be here? Basically, you're here to experience these things for yourself, and to get a grasp of the nuance, so that when we all coalesce into one after death, then we have a greater understanding of ourselves, essentially, which is fascinating.
Wow.
So that one hurt.
We have gone deep on this one.
Yeah.
This is a good one.
Yeah. It's definitely scratching some. It's definitely touching the tips of some icebergs.
Yeah. I feel like through our podcast, you could see like a progressive relaxing and opening up of like us. Like, this is really just pure Sam and Henry talk.
This is raw.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is how we talk when the cameras aren't on.
And this is what it should be. This is what I wanted this podcast to be, to really just wrap this up with a nice bow. Like, it's us becoming more comfortable doing this, and more comfortable. We're more vulnerable. We're more open, more authentic. And
yeah.
I think,
authenticity.
I think we're going to hit on one of these really authentic podcasts. Like, we're talking about the truth of life. Everybody, it's got to resonate.
Yeah. I mean, if it doesn't resonate with you, comment down below, because you're something different, I think. Or I am.
There's confirmation of NPCs if this does not resonate with you.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, I think that is a great bow. I think that's a great place to wrap it up.
Fantastic. Well, we'll catch you guys next week.
Yeah.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Share with your friends.
Check out all of our other pieces of content. Bang, here. And there's going to be one over there.
Yep.
And, yeah. There you go.
Appreciate you guys listening to us.
Love you guys.
Yeah, we'll catch you next week.
See ya.
Peace.